little fox.
The Little Mermaid. Chapter 13. The Voyage. The grandest ship in the kingdom was chosen to take the prince to the neighboring kingdom. Decked out with ribbons and banners, it was ready for the voyage. The prince explained the trip to the Little Mermaid.
It is my parents' wish that I meet the princess. But you and I know that I will never marry her. After all, she surely cannot be the girl who saved my life.
Once again, the mermaid thought,
How sad it is that he doesn't know I saved him.
But if I had to choose a bride other than the maiden,
the prince continued.
It would be you.
Then he kissed the mermaid in his brotherly way. The Little Mermaid smiled up at him.
Maybe my dream of marrying the prince will come true after all,
she thought. And for the moment, she was happy.
You will come with me on this voyage, my little companion,
he said.
I just hope you won't be too frightened by the sea.
The Little Mermaid smiled to herself.
My prince doesn't know it, but I will feel right at home at sea.
The Little Mermaid, along with the royal travelers, boarded the grand ship for their overnight journey. That night, while everyone slept, the Little Mermaid sat on deck, gazing into the sea. She thought she saw her whole family floating just beneath the waves. They seemed to be calling to her to come home.
I wish you well,
she thought.
But I must follow my heart.
The next morning, the ship came into the harbor of the nearby kingdom. Its king and queen awaited the prince and his companions. Trumpets sounded from tall towers. The citizens of the land gathered by the docks to greet their guests.
He's handsome,
a girl shouted when she saw the prince step off the ship.
What a wonderful match for our princess,
said an old woman.
It's a pity that she isn't here to welcome him.
She'll be here tomorrow,
replied the girl.
A little wheat won't hurt him.
The next day, the hours passed quickly as everyone celebrated in the streets. At last, a royal guard rode through the city announcing,
Come to the palace hall! The princess has arrived!
Everyone rushed to the hall. They all wanted to get a good look at her. Pushing through the crowd, the Little Mermaid was very curious too. Finally, the princess appeared, tall, delicate, and dressed in white satin.
She is truly beautiful,
thought the Little Mermaid.
And she looks a bit familiar.
The princess's perfect skin was pale and clear. Her black hair was long and shiny. Under her long dark lashes were the deepest green eyes that the Little Mermaid had ever seen. The Little Mermaid thought,
I'm glad my prince is not interested in marrying her.
But then the prince stepped up to greet the princess. When he saw her up close, he gasped.
It is you! You are the one who saved my life. I remember waking up on the shore to see your face.
He took the maiden's small hand and kissed it gallantly.
I am very lucky to meet you again, my princess. And I would be most honored to marry you.
The Little Mermaid. Chapter 14. A Royal Wedding. The prince's words cut deeply into the Little Mermaid's heart. All her hopes and dreams were shattered. Unable to speak, she could not tell the prince she had saved him from the storm. There was no way to tell him that she would die if he married the maiden. Without a voice, she couldn't utter a single word.
What have I done?
She thought.
I should never have given my voice to the witch.
The little mermaid could not even weep with sorrow, since mermaids cannot cry. She could only look at the prince with her sad eyes. Blinded by his own happiness, the prince could not see that he had broken her heart.
I never thought that I would find my maiden.
He said happily.
My dear little companion, you will share in my great joy.
The following day, royal guards rode through the streets announcing the marriage. Then, the members of the royal families marched through town until they reached the center square. There, the prince and princess maiden joined hands and were wed. The young couple beamed with happiness, and the crowd cheered when they kissed. Only the little mermaid was heartsick as she held the bride's flowers during the ceremony. She thought about her old life in the Sea Kingdom and her grandmother's loving touch.
I have given up my home and family forever,
she thought.
I have lost my lovely voice. And now I have lost my prince. I will die the moment the sun rises over the sea.
That evening, the celebration continued on the grand ship. The prince, his new bride, and all their guests went aboard for a huge party. It was a calm, clear night, just like the night the little mermaid had first seen the prince. Brightly colored lanterns lit up the deck. Fireworks and cannon booms filled the air. Sailors and guests danced together to the lively music. The prince walked over to the little mermaid, bowed, and asked,
My little companion, will you do me the honor of dancing for my guests?
I wish I could dance with you, my prince,
she wanted to say. Instead, the little mermaid spun onto the floor alone. As always, her tender feet hurt terribly. But this time, she did not notice the pain because her heart was broken. She knew this would be her last night on Earth, and she would never see her prince again. The little mermaid would not get a soul, but instead become foam upon the waves. She danced as if she were under a spell, without thought, without dreams, without hope. The guests cheered at her every step and turn. Her feet seemed enchanted. Finally, the music stopped, and so did the little mermaid. She looked for the prince, but he had left.
The happy couple has gone to bed,
said one of the guests, as if in answer to her thoughts.
Let us wish them well.
On the deck, a tent of golden silk had been set up. Inside the tent, the royal pair sat on a bed. As the guests cheered, the prince kissed his bride and ran his fingers through her hair. The Little Mermaid, Chapter 15, A Last Chance. After the party, everyone on board the ship finally went to sleep. But not the little mermaid. She knew that she would turn into sea foam at the first rays of dawn light. So she stayed on deck and looked out at the sea and the stars.
My prince, my soul, and my future, they're all gone now,
she thought. Minutes before the sun appeared, the little mermaid noticed some movement in the water near the ship. Suddenly, she saw 5 figures rising from the waves, waving to her. The little mermaid didn't recognize her sisters right away. Their long and lovely hair was gone. Together, they swam close to where she stood. Their heads bobbed above the water as they spoke.
"We're here to save you!"
cried the eldest sister.
"When we found out about the prince's wedding, we went straight to the sea witch for help."
The second sister explained.
"She gave us a magic dagger that will save your life. In exchange, she demanded our hair."
The third sister told the Little Mermaid what the witch had instructed them to do.
Before the sun rises, you must plunge the sharp blade into the prince's heart. Once he is dead, you will become a mermaid again.
The Little Mermaid trembled.
"But I don't want to hurt my prince,"
she thought. When the Little Mermaid hesitated, the fourth sister added,
Please, sister, you must kill him to save yourself. Then you can come home with us.
The fifth sister spoke for them all.
"We all miss you. Our grandmother and father are waiting for you. You belong in the Sea Kingdom."
"But I wanted my life to be different,"
The Little Mermaid thought sadly. The eldest sister yelled impatiently.
"Hurry! You must be quick! It's almost daybreak! Kill the prince now!"
She threw the dagger up into the air, and the Little Mermaid caught the knife easily.
"Please, hurry, sister!"
cried the 5 mermaids as they dived back beneath the waves. The Little Mermaid looked at the knife. She was uncertain about what to do. This gift had cost her sisters their beautiful hair. They had given her a last chance to save herself. The Little Mermaid crept up to the royal tent and parted the curtains. She stepped lightly inside and saw her prince with his arms around his new bride. They were both fast asleep. The Little Mermaid felt both anger and tenderness. Through the thin cloth of the tent, she saw that the morning sun was about to rise. Time was running out. Her chance was almost gone. She looked at the dagger and then at the handsome face of the sleeping prince. It was either her life or his. She lowered the knife close to his heart, but then stopped.
"How can I kill him?"
she thought.
"I love my prince. He must live, even if I must die."
So the Little Mermaid ran out of the tent and flung the knife into the waves. Then she threw herself over the side of the ship and into the sea. She thought she could feel her body dissolving into thousands of bubbles of sea foam. Soon, the Little Mermaid would be no more. The Little Mermaid, Chapter 16, In the World of Air Spirits. The Little Mermaid felt the warmth of the morning sun on her face. To her surprise, she was not dead and had not turned into sea foam. Instead, she was floating above the water.
"It is dawn and I am still alive?"
she wondered. Above her head were 2 strange beings in long white robes. They looked as if they were waiting to greet her. They smiled as they floated in the air like clouds. She tried to touch them, but her hand went right through them. The Little Mermaid soon discovered that she was dressed in a robe too. Like them, she was also part of the air and floating like a cloud. Without thinking, she called out to them.
"Who are you?"
To her surprise, she heard her own voice, and it was just as beautiful as it had been before she gave it to the Sea Witch.
"We are the spirits of the air,"
one of them replied.
"We travel through the world doing good deeds."
"Why am I here with you?"
The Little Mermaid asked.
"Your loyalty to the prince and your sacrifice has raised you up to the world of air spirits.
The other said.
You are now one of us.
The mermaid was curious.
I need to know more. Do you live for 300 years like the sea folk? Do you have a soul like the humans?
Here, in our world, we also live for 300 years. But we can earn our souls. When we do, we live forever.
I've always wanted a soul,
said the mermaid.
What must I do to deserve one? If you do many good deeds throughout your 300 years, you will get a soul,
answered one of the air spirits.
Exactly what is a good deed?
Asked the little mermaid, now very interested.
A good deed is when you do something nice for humans. The spirits of the air watch over humans. We bring them food when they are hungry and clothes when they are cold. Sometimes we whisper good thoughts into their ears when they are sad. We try to help in any way we can.
Pleased, the little mermaid looked down to the earth. She liked the idea of watching over the humans, whom she had learned to love.
I finally have a chance to earn a soul,
she said, laughing. The little mermaid's joy was so great that for the first time in her life, she began to cry. Her tears of happiness fell one by one into the sea below her. Then the little mermaid saw the grand ship. She could see that everyone on board was now awake. The prince and his bride were looking for her and calling out. After a while, they just gazed sadly out to sea.
What has happened to my little companion?
Wondered the prince.
She was so faithful to me.
The little mermaid blew him a kiss that turned into a white feather. Floating softly down, it brushed the prince's cheek. Then she blew another kiss to his bride. She wished them both well, her first good deed